Dynasty. Yeah, it's your boy, 005 Dynasty. You already know. I'm coming live direct to YouTube with a nice tutorial. Yeah, it's your boy. Alright, you know what? Let's just get into it. Alright, so today's tutorial is about creating a melody from scratch. And we're live inside the MPC Live. You know what I'm saying? Made by a guy professional. You know what I'm saying? And we're messing with the Selena plugin. So I know throughout the times, you know, the history of hip hop and R&B too, you know what I'm saying, and other genres as well, we sample from other composers and musical producers to make excellent music. I know. But when it comes to 05 Dynasty, I want to be just as great as them. So I decided to learn how to create music from scratch. And that's the tutorial we're going to go through today. Really quick too. Since everything's already done for us, I'm just going to go through the steps. So right now, we're going to go over to track number 1, okay? And the plugin that I use is Selena again. And the brass and string stop, okay? So let's go over here. Let's mute all this, and now let's play that. Okay, so that's going to be the bass line for this specific melody loop that I created. Well, cinematic melody loop. I'm all about cinematic. That's Dynasty. That's my vibes. Okay, so now let's go to track 2 and let's show you that one. Okay. I like that. All right. So now let's go to track 3 and show you that one. Okay. So track 2 was a string sound, which I played some chords. And track 3 is another chorus sound, like a chorus string sound, but I played it as a pluck and made it into like a sound effect. Okay, and now let's go over to track 4, which is Selena again, like some vintage type strings. All right. Okay, so we have that. And last but not least, we have Selena again, and it's a default patch. Okay, so what I did was I took these 5 different sounds and I just mixed and mastered them to basically come together with this masterpiece. So let me play all of it for you. Okay, so now that basically is the start of a song. I mean, you could take it, you could put it into a cinematic film if you wanted to, or you do it in hip hop. You know what I mean? So now let's go to the mixing. So we're going to start off with track 2, which is our main melody. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into it. So this is our first sequence. So we ain't doing no other sequences yet. This is track 2. This is the Selena string stop. Okay, it's the plugin that's inside of the MPC. You know, you go to plugins right here. Go to plugins, and then from plugins you select Selena, and then this is the brass and string stop. Okay, so now let me play this for you. Hold on 1 second. By itself. Okay, now let me take all the effects off of it and play it. Turn the volume down. Now I'm going to put the effects back on. As you can see, it is a drastic difference, and it's cinematic. It's sitting back into the mix. It's beautiful. So now let's start with the first thing. So we have 3 effects on this. We have a reverb. Let's take that off. We have a multi-chorus. Let's take that off. And we have a parametric EQ. I just want to say this. The EQ is going to be your best friend. Your EQ and creativity are your best friend. That's your bestie. When you're creating music, your EQ and creativity is your best friend. Okay? I can't stress that enough. Now, let's go into the parametric EQ. Let me show you what I did. And if you don't know how to get to the parametric EQ, it's basically you go to the plugins. It's in the EQ and filter section. Okay, and you go down to Air Para EQ, which is parametric EQ. Okay, so you're gonna go to the EQ section, come down to the Air Parametric EQ, click that. Okay, and then from there you're going to click this pencil. And then in the pencil, you can start editing the parameters of the EQ. Now, the first section we don't need to touch because that's only specific, well, to me, it's specific for, you know, cutting out resonant frequencies or boosting like specific frequencies. But what I want to do is I just want to cut the highs on this, okay? And what I mean by resonant frequencies, those are frequencies that are a little harsh for the ears, like you don't really want to hear them, so you might want to cut those. Or you might want to do like a filter sweep, like a special effect. There's different things you could do with this part of the parametric EQ. But right now, what I did was I just went from the EQ, basic settings, over to the high and low cut. So you click on that. You have to turn on, okay, because they're off at first. You have to turn these on. So I turned both of them on. What I did here with the high frequencies was I cut a little bit down to 9.28 kilohertz. And then I also took out some bottom end on this sound because I didn't need the bass sound inside of this string because I have a bass line. So I cut the bottom end. So I dropped that down 2.94 kilohertz. All right. So let's see. I'm going to play it without, and I'm going to play it with the EQ. Now you can hear the high frequencies are coming in too sharp, too hard, and also there's a bass line that is like doom. Okay, now I'll put this on the EQ, and now listen to it. Okay, the highs are not coming in as sharp. And also, I killed most of that bass that's inside of there. Now, let's go back. Let's turn on the second thing, which is the multi-chorus. Now, what the multi-chorus does is it actually pushes the sound back into the mix. And also, it opens it up more. It actually adds like a little chorus effect to it. So now, let's play both of these together, okay? Now, they've done a pretty good job with the Air multi-chorus. You could just basically leave it on the default, and that's that. Now, let's move on to the next thing, which is the Air reverb that I added. So I do EQ first, then I do like my special like modulation, which is the multi-chorus, and now I do a reverb to sit it back into the track a little bit more. So what the reverb does is it pans the sound north and south, not east and west. It pans it north and south, like forward and backwards. So now let's play with the reverb and hear how it drops it back into the track. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So that's that one. So now we have the parametric EQ first. Sorry. So we have the parametric EQ first. We have the multi-chorus, and then we have the air reverb. So now we're done with that first sound. Now let's move on to the second one, which is the bass. I mixed basically my main core sound along with the bass, and then from there I started adding sounds on top of that. So let's go to track 1. Let's unmute that. Make sure we mute track 2, the bass. Such a nice bass, but it did not start out that way. So now let's go into the inserts, okay? If you did not see that, I'm on track number 1. The plugin is Selena. It's the brass and string stop. So now let's go into the plugins, like where our inserts are at. I'm gonna turn them off, and I'm gonna play the bass without the effects. As you can see, I had to turn that down because it was whoa, okay? So it's a great sound, but without the effects, it has too much of highs. I do want to point this out. No matter which sound you are using, bass or mid-tone or high frequency, they all will contain parts of those elements, parts of those frequencies. So a bass note can also have high frequencies in it, but we don't need that because we already have strings that are playing. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is turn it back on, turn these off, this off, and the parametric EQ. Now I told you the EQ is going to be your friend. Actually, it's going to be your best friend. So like I was saying, your parametric EQ or your EQ in general is going to be your best friend. So let's go in here, check that out. So what I did was, you start off with the EQ, but I switched over to the high and low cut. And as you can see, I actually cut a lot off of that sound. So I cut 1.72 kilohertz on the high frequency of the bass. So now let's hear that. You see how I'm turning it on and off? You can hear the difference. The EQ is your best friend. The more you cut, the more you actually add to your track, and you make it gel much better. All right, so we added a parametric EQ. Let's turn this on. The next thing we added was a multi-chorus. Do not be afraid to add a multi-chorus to your bass frequencies. Actually, you can add a multi-chorus to pretty much almost anything. You just have to be creative and play around with it. So we added a multi-chorus. I don't know if you can hear that, but it gives it a little bit more, like, spaces it out a little bit more. And now let's add a reverb to that. When I add a reverb to my bass notes or a reverb to my kick drum, etc., it's very, very small. So if you don't know how to find the reverb, you can go into your plugins menu. It's going to be in a delay and reverb tab, and you scroll down, use air reverb, okay? And then as you can see over here, go back to reverb, and the mix is only at 5%. I only use 5% reverb because you don't want to muddy up the bottom of your track. Technically, you don't want to muddy up any part of your track, but definitely not the bottom end. And also, there could be some mud in the high frequencies. That's called air that you want to take out of your track as well. So basically, I only use 5%. I use a basic small room, okay? And let's hear it. Did you hear it? So one of the ways I test the reverb out is I press play and then I press stop. Then you can hear the reverb tail. Let's play that again. You hear that tail? So that was a nice short reverb, and it's going to actually help that bass line sit back into the track along with everything else. So now let's go back. Make sure, yep, so we did parametric EQ, multi-chorus, and then an air reverb. Let's go back to track mute, and we're going to play our first two tracks together, the bass and our main strings. As you can see, between the mixing between both of these two, they gel perfectly together. We have a nice bottom mid, and on top of that, we have a nice like mid to high tone on string sound. So now let's go on to the next thing. Let's mute these two. Let's go to Selena Chorus. That's track 3. When I played it out on the keyboard, it is a string sound, but I only played one key as a pluck. I turned it into a pluck sound, which made it into a sound effect. So let's listen to it. Okay, so I turned it into a pluck sound, and let's go into it. So let's turn the first two off. I did a parametric EQ again. Reason being because it did have some high frequencies that I did not like. So we can hear that. Let's play that. So did you hear how sharp that came in? Now let's put the parametric EQ back on. I can show you what I did. I cut just a little bit off, 8.38 kilohertz. Okay. And then from there, I added a reverb, which pushed it back into the track. Remember, that's panning north and south. So a small reverb. Let's play that. Nice, nice, nice. Nice. Okay. And the last thing we did was we added a ping pong delay because I didn't want it to be a one shot that was just stagnant. I wanted it to move a little bit. And also with that ping pong delay is I turned that ping pong delay down so you can hear just a little bit of the movement. It's pretty nice actually. Let's listen to it again. Okay, so what we did here was we basically went into the ping pong delay. We went to the never stop patch, okay? And then only thing we did was we just turned down the dry and the wet knob. So we turned the dry and the wet knob to the left, which is more towards the dry side because I wanted the wet side to actually fade. So if you turn up the dry, it will actually fade out the wet side, okay? So that's a nice sound effect we created. Now let's turn that off. Let's go over to the fourth track, okay, which is the Selena vintage soft strings. Let's play that. Make sure we got that. Yes, by itself. Okay. Okay, that's a very nice sound on its own. It's very soft. I did not have to add a parametric EQ to that. I did not have to cut any highs, so that was pretty good. What I did do was I added a multi-chorus to make the sound, expand out, and then also I added a nice reverb to it. So let's hear it without these two effects. Now let's put these two effects back on. Did you hear how the multi-chorus made it like expand out, but then the reverb did the north and south panning and pushed it back? Oh, it's so beautiful, man. Okay, so you could actually go in here and mess with these settings on your own. It's pretty much the same thing. You just want to make sure things are in the same room, like the reverb is in the same room as the other sounds. Or on this one, actually, I used the initialize patch. Just be very wary of that. Like, you don't have to shy away from the initialize patch. It's actually pretty cool, man. I like the initialize patch. What you can do is, though, what I did on this one was, since when I put the reverb on, it actually really like slammed the door on the high sounds. So what I did with this was I went into the reverb, okay? I clicked on the high and the low frequencies, click on that, and then see right here, this frequency knob, this is the filter, so okay, for this reverb. So you can either mess with the cut or you can mess with the frequency range. And that's what I did. I turned the frequency range up to open up the filter to allow some high sounds to come in more, okay? And that's how I got that initialize patch to work for me. So you could mess with the initialize patch, but just make sure you go into the second tab, mess with these settings, and next you know you have some magic working for yourself. All right, so let's go back to the main. So we have a multi-chorus, and then we have the reverb. That's good. Another thing is, let's go back to track number 3. Track 3 is pan to the left at 20%. Track 4 is pan to the right at 20%. Because when you are mixing and mastering, you don't want to have all your sounds directly in the middle, because that will definitely muddy up your track. And you want to be able to hear sounds at different levels in it. You know what I mean? So this one is pan to the right. The vintage, that sound effect, which is the Selena Chorus, that one shot that turns into a sound effect, is pan to the left. Actually, let's play that for you so you can hear that. 3 and 4. Okay. All right, so now let's go over to track 5 and work with that. So it's also the Selena default, so don't be afraid to mess with the default sounds. They're pretty cool. That's just me hitting on the keys right there just to show you that that's the default, okay? Now, let's go in here. Let's turn all the sounds off. Play that. Did you hear how sharp that sound is? How the highs are piercing, basically? That's not what you want inside of your mix. So let's play that with the effects on it. So do you hear how that dropped the sound back into the track, made it more cinematic? So now let's go through the effects that we added. I tell you, the first thing you want to add is your bestie. Your bestie is a parametric EQ. You know what I'm saying? So or EQ in general. So let's go in here. What I do, I dropped it down after turning it on. I dropped it down 5.86 kilohertz at 12 dB level. So if you don't know how to do that, you go to the EQ, you click on the high-low cut, and then boom, okay? You turn it on, and then you change the parameters. So I cut the highs on that. So now let's hear that. Okay, as you can see, it's not as high. The second thing I added was a multi-chorus to push the sound back a little bit more and to open it up. Okay, the third sound I added was a reverb. Okay, this is an initialized patch, like I told you before. Then you could come over to the high and low cut, and then you could change the parameters in the frequency range or in the cut. You know what I mean, to make that reverb nice. Okay, let's go back. Then the last thing I added was an ensemble, and I'll let you check this out. It's basically like a way of modulating the strings, which is pretty cool. You go in here. I use the initialized patch again. You don't have to do too much when it comes to mixing. You'll learn that, you know, less is more. All right, and that's that. So that's all 5 sounds. So we got the first track, which is going to be the bass, which is actually a brass sound, but I cut out the highs and turned it into a bass sound. Now let's add the body. I was trying to be slick. I threw in track 4 just to see if y'all was gonna peep that. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's bring that back. Okay. Now let's add that pluck sound that turns into an effect. Turn off track 4. So as you can see, it adds dynamic, it adds character to the actual track. I mean, that little pluck sound with the ping pong delay is pretty cool, man. And then we're gonna finish it off with these strings at the top. But I just want to say this is the first sequence. So you can add many more sequences to build upon to create either a cinematic track for a movie or to create something for a hip hop track or R&B track. You know what I mean? The creativity is endless. You know what I'm saying? The possibilities for you to create is endless. But I just wanted to show you how I made, you know what I mean, a simple melody loop basically as the basis of a song from scratch though. You know what I mean? And I played all this out. So everything was played out. So the bass line is played out. Okay, that's the bass line. But the first thing that I played out was the middle string. So I always like to start in the midtones to have that meat and potatoes, and then I build from there. So I'll show you that. And as you can see, there's a gap right there between the third and the fourth bar. And I did that on purpose because I like to build a foundation or a structure. I like to format my song as I'm creating it. You know what I mean? So that was done intentionally to leave room at the end so I could actually play in between that space and add more sounds. It's building characteristics, structure. It's giving like feeling, emotion to the song. Let's hear that again. So basically, it's telling the story. The meat and potatoes, the center of the track, is basically telling the story already before I added anything else. And then I added the bass line along with it. Now watch when the strings drop out and watch when the bass line comes in. Okay? And then I have my two sounds that are pan to the left and to the right to add more characteristics. And then I have what's final, which is the string, which is basically if I wanted to have a chorus on a track, this could be the chorus part. Okay, let's play these three together. And as you can see on the first four bars, I have the high strings playing, but on the second half, I don't have anything playing when it comes to the high note because I'm giving the artist the ability to be flexible with the way they're rhyming, the way they're singing, or whatever on the track. These are the type of things you need to think of when you're creating music from scratch. All right, so let's play all of them together, then we're going to end this tutorial. But I want to thank everybody for coming to my channel. Actually just, giving me the ability to actually teach you something, you know what I mean? And I hope you actually learned something. If you did not learn anything, that I have not done my job. If you did learn something today, that means I've done my job. If I'm able to help one person, I feel very successful and very happy. So I'm going to play this out, mess around with it a little bit, and I'm going to end this tutorial. Be on the lookout for more tutorials coming. Don't forget, you know what I'm saying, if you want to, only if you want to, hit that subscribe button. I don't usually promote that, but hey, you know what I'm saying, if you want to, I appreciate it. This your boy 05 Dynasty, and let's get it, man. Let's start teaching each other. 1.